Hello and welcome to Nintendo Nostalgia. I'm your host Ryan Black and I'm joined with my co-host Joshua Taylor and we are back and we are playing with power. Josh, how you doing this week?
Hello, I am not doing too bad right now.
Good to hear, man. I am doing well as well. It's been a pretty busy week, but I've got a short week at work, so I'm off the next 3 days. It's going to be nice. I'm going to be streaming on the Saturday, 24 hours for Extra Life, so I'm going to be pretty tired on Sunday and still have to work that day, but I'll recover. But I know I'm not as young as I used to be, but so let's go ahead and get into what we are Radical Rexing about. Okay, Josh, what you Radical Rexing about this week?
Well, some about our topic, which I feel like I kind of have been for months now. So I won't get too much into that. I've been playing more Sparks of Hope. And, you know, outside of that, game-wise, not a whole lot except the Mario Party 1 and 2 did just come out on the NSO N64 app, whatever you call it. And I've always been a fan of that series, including like since the first game back over 20 years ago. It has aged a little funny, so if this is your first time playing that game, maybe not Ryan's, but anyone else's, you know, just go in knowing it's not the most balanced thing in the world.
You want to know how I got these scars?
Yeah, there's things like that you know age a little funny, but it's fine. It's fine. But I still like seeing them back and the potential to maybe play them online with some people and things like that. It's always good to sort of relive some of that stuff. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm forgetting some other cool stuff, but I will say one sort of bummer, but I'm sort of finding some light in it as well, is my Facebook that I've had for 14, 15 years was taken over by some dude who I guess wanted to break into it bad enough to just go in and basically delete it. So that kind of stinks. At the same time, it's been kind of nice. Like, oh yeah, I'm not sitting there looking at Facebook just when I have nothing else to do. Granted, I still have my Twitter and everything else, but so you know that kind of sucks. Hopefully that we can get that figured out. They don't have support, but I won't get into all that.
Hopefully,
yeah, it sucks with some of the memories and things like that would go away. But it is what it is.
Definitely
trying to find the light in all of that sort of stuff, but. Yeah, there's plenty else to look forward to, including in the game world.
Yeah, I did some research on that, and it looks like they keep it around for like 30 days anyway. It's not truly deleted, so if maybe you could even see if they could capture the things that you need, like your photos and stuff, just to save your memories. Like that's something maybe they could do if they can't restore the account, which I couldn't see why they wouldn't be able to. But you know, you've got two-factor authentication you've got to get around to, as your wife was explaining to me. So. Yeah, I hope you're able to get that unlocked because you're tied to the Nintendo Nostalgia, you know, accounts, and
I love
you have your own streaming with your Whopper account, and so like it's a little rough.
I do love hopping in
that was your primary
group.
place. You didn't Twitch. You did Facebook mostly, didn't you, for Facebook gaming?
For that, yeah, that last little bit I did. I haven't done that in a while, but yeah, I did. I sort of did that because there's a lot of people I have on there. It's mostly a distant family thing, and you know that sort of stuff. So I got to recontact to them, but. You know, right now it just kind of stings, but I'm not that. It's not the end of the world. You know, I've lived without that before, and we'll figure it out. But I do miss. I like jumping in that group, especially like our group on Facebook, and that's kind of our primary way of speaking on there. At least right now it is. So.
Yeah, we'll definitely get you hooked up again if you can't get that old one reinstated. But sorry to hear that, man. But. I do know the freeing feeling it is when you're able to put away social media for a while or have for one reason or another. You know, I mean, it's not the first time you've been in Facebook jail, so I'm sure this is not too much different.
I was innocent both times. The last one was kind of funny, but I won't even get into all that. I'm not one that goes in like post-political stuff, but apparently you really got to be careful with what you share. Like I don't care about that stuff. The last time was just goofy.
Yeah. As far as what I've been rexing about, I have been enjoying Splatoon 3 constantly. Like that's a big game that Draco and I have been playing together, and it's been great. Like each night, just hop on before we go to bed and just get our dailies in. You know, do the gacha and win our one match, and then switch over to Salmon Run and have some fun with that, and try to get all the sparkly ones for the first, the two sparklies gachas that you can get on the as you gain experience or as you play. So that's been fun. We're not super great, but having a lot of fun with that. And then other than that, not a whole much else is going on with gaming. On Halloween, I played a little bit of Luigi's Mansion 3. Just, didn't get too far into it, but I got to play a little bit more, so it was nice to get back to it. And then I've been playing some Klonoa. I'm on what I'm assuming to be the last level. But I'm trying to get 100% all the way through, and so I keep having to backtrack or keep trying levels over again to get, collect all the hidden things, all the hidden gems, and try to find the eggs you had to break and stuff. So I'm still working through that. Almost done. This is the first game. I'm not sure if I'm going to commit to the second game just yet because I still have Nier to do, and I also have the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. I'm probably going to be touching a couple of those things on my 24-hour stream on Saturday, but I haven't decided what I'm going to do exactly. It's going to be pretty much a variety stream, whatever I feel like, whatever keeps me awake, essentially. I probably won't be playing any of the Wingspan game if I'm trying to stay awake. So.
I've always wanted to do that. I haven't got to it yet, but I really like that idea of being able to use gaming for something good like that. So
yeah. I'm going to be raising money for the local Riley Children's Hospital. So we actually take Draco there for various things that we need to do that involve allergies because we really trust them with allergy care. So we the two COVID vaccines that we got for Draco, we got there because they were able to just take us straight up to a room and start with the epinephrine or the Benadryl, whatever was needed at the time for the reaction. But we wanted to make sure there was at least a couple of rounds in to help protect what little bit of the immune system that it would take. So yeah, we definitely owe a lot to them, and we really like Riley and their care that they do. Even though they're a children's hospital, they're really good and help. And they talk in a way that's easy for Draco to work with. Sometimes Draco will be nonverbal, and so just they're able to work with kids that just don't want to talk or don't, or are like overwhelmed. So it really helps with that. So yeah, and they're part of the network, the greater network of the IU Health Network. So we have a lot of good things to say about them. And looking forward to helping raising money for that. My goal is 500. I think it was less than my first year streaming, but I haven't been streaming like consistently or anything, so I don't have any like regular followers. I did, post at my work like, "Hey, I'm doing this thing on Saturday. Come check it out." And I think I posted on my Facebook too. But I've not been super proactive. But I'm just gonna have fun with it and game and enjoy the good time. I'm not worried about any of the incentives or anything. Apparently, you can get some cool prizes, but I've not even looked at it. But I've been hearing the Nintendo dads talk about, and they're going to go to New York and stream with the Phoenix Overdrive, and it's actually the team that I'm on is Phoenix Overdrive. So it's kind of cool that I'm going to be kind of affiliated with the Nintendo dads. And speaking of Nintendo dads, you have something to Radical Rex about that one. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was on an episode with them last week. I guess it came out Sunday, I think Saturday. It was the past couple days. It came out on their YouTube channel. So I got to talk about basically the topic we're talking about tonight. I'm sure things will go in slightly different directions, so you should probably listen to both.
Definitely.
But yeah, it's mostly about Sparks of Hope. It's about an hour long. So go check that out as well.
Cool. Well, I think that brings us to the topic at hand. Today we are talking.
I have one more. I almost forgot, and it crossed my mind. And I've been so caught up in Mario and Rabbids, which we're just about to get into, is I wanted to throw this your way too because I haven't talked to you much about it. Is Friday Sonic Frontiers is supposed to come out.
Ooh.
So I kind of just wanted to see what you thought on that because I've been a Sonic fan for a long time. I've Mario even longer. I've Mario. It just have the greater games. But there's a special place for Sonic still for me. I love the adventure games especially. That's just my forte. And this looks like it's hearkening somewhat back to that more so than the past decade or so has at least. So I'm pretty excited for it, except I just wish I knew if the Switch version was going to run. Okay, that's my biggest thing I'm worried about right now. But I didn't know if you were excited for it or looking at picking it up or what have you.
I'm excited for it. I trust that Sega would at least patch the rough parts out in Switch if the early adopters find that there's something wrong with it, but I'm cautiously optimistic. I've only seen just a little bit. I've not watched a lot of the videos. I don't want to be spoiled, but
sure.
I'm hoping it feels like a Sonic Adventure game. Really do, but I also want it to be its own thing with its own mechanics and its own like surprises. I just hope it feels great and has great combat, because Sonic really lacks in combat in a lot of times, in a lot of ways, like in some of the games where it's just like it's hard to match up speed with fighting in a cohesive way that is a user controlled experience that is a good thing.
Yeah.
And so, I'll try anything Sonic. Like I love Sonic Chronicles, the RPG, which RPG, turn-based RPG, and Sonic just seems weird, but it works. But I'm also excited for the story, and I know you've mentioned a couple times, but see Knuckles return to glory.
Yeah,
in a game,
that makes me,
because he's been kind of dopey.
That makes me happy.
I haven't actually seen the Sonic 2 movie yet, so I might have to do that before I see Frontiers. Like, find it on a streaming service or something. But I've got Paramount Plus. I think it's on there.
Yeah, it's fun.
I need to check that out. But yeah, I'm cautiously optimistic. I don't have any plans of picking it up, but I do have it on my Christmas list. Cool. And depending on like people saying it's amazing, I might go for it a little earlier, try to get a hold of it. But I've got Pokemon coming up as well too that I'm saving for.
Yeah, so that's kind of our.
Just depends on how that goes.
That's our problem right now is between Sonic and Pokemon. The thing with one's going to be on the Christmas list, so to speak, and the other's not. Long story short, my wife and I both want our own copies of Pokemon anyway, and then now we've got my daughter that's interested, so we don't know how to handle that yet. So that's a little more meaty. That might be waiting for Christmas, but anywho,
I've got the double pack on pre-order, so I've got some gift cards I got from work, and then I've got to come up with just a little bit extra to cover the rest of it.
I give it a hard time, but I do enjoy those games for the most part. I just wish that some things just a little nitpicky for me that just irks me a little bit, but they're still good at heart.
I'm hoping that the online playing with friends is as good as I'm hoping it would be. I'm worried it's just going to be like there's not a lot of features to do or things to do with friends, but again, this is something I haven't really given much imagination to, and I'm hoping that they capture my imagination in their own ways instead of me trying to figure out how they're going to do it. Because I'm not expecting MMO quality, going raiding with friends or anything like that. But
doesn't need to be.
I'm hoping it's a good for that. Yeah. So overall, I'm hoping it's a pretty good package, and I'm excited to see the new Pokemon because I've got to catch them all. I'm that person. So
all right,
cool. Well, I think we are all good. Let's get into the topic for the show. This week we are talking all about Mario versus Rabbids. That's right, Mario vs. Rabbids, and we're going to talk a little bit about the first game. So I didn't want to say like it was all about Sparks of Hope, but I do want to give what's due to the first game and talk about its legacy before we roll into Sparks of Hope with Kingdom Battle. I personally have played Kingdom Battle. I have played not all of it. I think I'm in the last area, so I just need to go through and beat it. Like, I really thoroughly enjoyed the haunted area, though there was quite a difficulty spike there towards the end of that area. And I haven't played any of the DLC with the Donkey Kong stuff, which I hear is where it really shines. But I do enjoy the game, the mechanics and everything. I was pleasantly surprised that it just worked. I was trying to do that alongside Breath of the Wild stuff, and so I had those both vying for my attention. But I really did circle back to it after Breath of the Wild and played it some and didn't complete it, but really enjoyed what I had for that. And the charm is there, and I liked certain characters and the way things interacted. And I'm hoping to see more of that in the new game, which I'm sure you'll touch on. But give us a little bit of background on your experience with this first game with Kingdom Battle.
It's kind of hard to know where to start for me. To be honest, I picked it. I did not pick it up on release date. It's not necessarily my usual genre. I have played some Fire Emblem games. It's maybe the biggest thing I can compare it to, even though they're pretty different as well. But I never played like XCOM or anything like that. RPGs are hit and miss with me, just really depending on what they are. But this one took off pretty quick once I got a hold of it. Once I started really trying to keep up with it and take it seriously, like really consider getting it. Really, anything that has Mario's name on it usually gets my attention anyway. So I think that's what eventually got me to cave. It was shortly after release, but I didn't jump out like day one on it. But obviously, I'm glad I got it when I did. I think it's sort of a good way to ease your way into a different sort of genre like that, into that strategy sort of RPG-ish sort of deal, if you're not really used to it. And as you know, I'm coming from somebody who doesn't put a whole lot of time into those usually. But from what I can tell, it seems like it's a pretty chill game for those who are a little more used to it as well. Like it works. It's not like insanely easy, but it's not like, well, some of the later extra challenges are extremely difficult. But it's not incredibly punishing for the most part either. So.
And I think it's pretty accessible, and it's not slow and clunky. It's pretty quick and snappy, and how even when you do turn-based stuff, like you think it's really smooth and fluid, and that feels great with combos and things.
Yeah.
So following the legacy, this game was leaked early, and people are like, no way, that can't exist. Like Mario and Rabbids, like that's got to be like the biggest joke of the year, and then it ended up being an actual thing, and like what? And then like people were making fun of it, and they're like, no, it's actually a good game. It's like, what? Like what's going on here? And then it just like came out of nowhere and just like left a legacy and started this whole franchise, if you will. And from what I understand, like yes, this was Mario and Rabbids, but it sounds like the new game is pushing into more of expanding the Rabbids universe. But still has Mario elements to it. Just from there's a new Rabbid character. It's not necessarily Mario centric, and so there's been some teasing of some DLC that's coming later that shows some other Rabbids that aren't necessarily Nintendo themed. So I think that's kind of cool to see. What's coming, so this game, it's got multiplayer. It's got your single player stuff. It's got lots to do. You thoroughly enjoyed playing the old game with your wife. Just that's something you two bonded over, similar like what I'm bonding with Draco over with the Splatoon. Oh, yeah. So okay. So leaving off on the first game now, I don't know how the first game ends necessarily, but would you say that you have to complete the first game to really get a good understanding of the start of the second game, or do you think that something like even if you've played Kingdom Battle but you haven't beaten it, could you jump on into the second one, and would you recommend doing that, or would you think finishing up the first one would be a good idea?
Kind of in the middle on that. From a story standpoint, it's not a huge deal. I mean, you're not like going to get super confused necessarily, but there are definitely some key points without going into spoilers, especially for later on, that will carry over from that first game.
Okay.
I don't think you necessarily have to beat it as long as you know most of the lore, I guess, most of the story around it.
Yeah.
You sort of pick up on, that was, I remember that, or I'm really trying to dance around spoilers here.
Yeah.
But yeah, from the story perspective, mostly you should be good. There's even a little like memories section that you can go to in Sparks of Hope near the beginning that gives you a very quick like story so far sort of deal. So that helps. The one thing, again, you can go in gameplay wise and you can figure it out. It teaches you the first little bit is sort of a tutorial without being a straight tutorial. So that's nice. The only thing with the gameplay is I feel like this is definitely more of an evolution to Kingdom Battle. It's different, but I could see it being a little strange. Like if you started with Sparks of Hope, got used to it, played through it, and then went back to like the old grid system and stuff. I can't really say how that feels because I did start with Kingdom Battle, but I feel like that might feel a little odd or take some getting used to. I guess either way it takes some getting used to, but it almost might feel like a step back. As long as you're aware of that, it may be fine to start either way.
So
yeah,
from my understanding, it's kind of a free roam. Like you have a certain distance that you can travel. Different characters have different distances. So is it like a sphere? Like you have like a bubble around you, and you can move within that bubble instead of like actual tiles. And you can like position yourself in different places within that bubble. Or is it something else a little bit less geometric, I suppose? Because I know that you could move certain number of blocks, but it seems to be different in this one. It's a little bit more free flow, and you don't really have necessarily tiles that you're moving along or anything like that, even though it was kind of masked anyway in the first game, like in some ways. Like, what do you think? How would you describe that, I guess, over audio on what's different there?
So it does feel more free. I think it opens up some new possibilities that wouldn't be possible, like in the original. It is sort of like a big circle, so to speak, that you're in, and there's abilities and ways you can sort of open that up for depending on what character you're using and things like that, the size of that. There is, of course, the mobility. If you remember in Kingdom Battle, there is like the team jump, where you can jump off of one character and kind of land somewhere else. That's like upgraded where you sort of hover for a little bit and you can go kind of land, over the little bit of hovering space you got, you can land somewhere else. And there's another little circle. So I think it definitely has opened up a lot, along with the normal dashes and things like that. It's, like I said, it's sort of a more freeing evolution, I think, of what Kingdom Battle was. At least with the movement. It's like you're straight up walking around each character as well too, where you're not just like, controlling Beepo, basically a cursor, and selecting where you want them to walk. You are actually walking them around.
Okay. Now, do you switch characters in the overworld, or is there even an overworld? Like, I guess comparing it to like Pokemon, like is it like you're in an overworld and you get into a random battle, or is it like you literally walk up to an enemy and attack them real time and it kind of kicks off the battle? Or is it like free flow, or is it more of like, go from point A to point B to point C? Like what kind of structure does that have?
There's a little bit of both. There is actually some sort of battles out in the wild. There's not like a ton of that, so it's not like super annoying or anything if you're just trying to walk around and explore. Some places, you do have to kind of watch if you don't want to get stuck in like a little battle that doesn't mean a whole lot to you, but they're not that obnoxious. They don't take forever. But yeah, there's like little quest menus where there's like your main story quest. There's little side quests you can do. Again, if you're coming straight from Kingdom Battle, those worlds are a little more blocky, so to speak, and they sort of feel like there's like a 1-1, 1-2 sort of flow almost to it. This is a little more open than that for sure. And the worlds themselves are a little more, I don't want to say realistic, but there's mountains and little towns and things like that. It doesn't feel quite as just sort of like squared off. There's a good reason.
It's a bit more topologically diverse.
Yeah. There's a good reason, I guess, for it too, because a lot of the theming comes around this. But it almost feels like how Mario Galaxy sort of has like its own little areas, and they might look like they're kind of floating in space because they pretty much are. So there's still some of that, but it still feels a little more alive.
Yeah, that does bring me to a point. Like this does look like the Mario Galaxy version of Rabbids.
Yeah.
Mario versus Rabbids. So is there a lot of elements are there any like planetoid type things or any kind of gravity things that you have to work with? Like, is there anything like, not touching on like super spoilers, I hope, but like, is there anything, it's set where they're going off into space.
Yeah,
so
right.
Is it more like you're going planets to planets, or is it like you're actually doing things in space in different areas of space? Like, is there's like space battles? Like, what does that look like as far as like, are you actually going down to planets or going into certain areas? Like, what does that kind of look like for the structure of the game?
So the different worlds are different planets, so to speak. So there is some like spacey elements to it. You're not like controlling the spaceship necessarily. It's almost like, I can't think of what it's called in Mario Odyssey, where he rides that ship, and it takes him from place to place. Yeah. That's about the gist of that. I mean, there's some like cutscenes and things. But, there's still that space-y kind of theme to it. And, of course, there's the sparks, which is essentially like Rabbid Lumas. So that alone sort of adds that galaxy-like flair to it.
Yeah, hopefully they're a little bit more useful than the Korok seeds, but
for sure.
So from what I understand of these sparks or these lumas that are rabid versions, so they each have different abilities and they give you boons in battles. You can I don't know how often you can pop their specials or if they have like a cooldown or if they're just once per battle or what, but they give you certain abilities, things that you can do. Is it essentially like an extra move, or is it something that like is pervasive throughout the battle? Like you get a boost to a certain thing action that you do if you have a certain one. Like, or how do these things help you? Is there passive and active things that you like when you activate one that just works all the time? Or is there like a mixture? How does that work? It seems like they're pretty like one note as far as what they specialize in, but I wasn't sure if they did any like boosting of stats or anything like passively or anything actively. What does that kind of look like?
There's definitely a variety of different like active and passive skills and stuff they have. There's a cooldown for all of them. So like one of the first ones, the first one you really start with is Starburst, and I have his little plush here somewhere. I wish I had him nearby. But anyway, like he will boost your team within the range he can reach in. I forget what the percentage starts as. It you can upgrade them essentially, but let's say it boosts everybody like 50% attack power for that turn. So you might have one that does stuff like that. There's one that shoots out like ooze. It basically like poisons your enemies. There's one that makes you invisible for 2 turns. Let's say there's a variety of different like sort of passive and more aggressive and defense sort of focused, just whatever you need them for. And you can assign them to whichever character you want to. So that gives you a ton of combinations sort of who to use them with. Basically, there's a lot of ways to sort of customize the team you want. Be it with any of the characters. You don't have to use Mario now like you did in Kingdom Battle. Though I do actually like using him. I will say that. But between the characters and the sparks and things like that, you can really sort of tailor it the way you're more comfortable with playing. Like I'm sort of like I usually play like up close. Like I really like Rabbids Mario. So I'm usually more like a close range sort of focused dude. But you could really just go to town with someone like Luigi as well on your team. And I've seen, and I've done it pretty before. You can be really mean with just if you're good at if you have a style and you stick with it. You can really play with that and adjust the sparks and sort of stuff like that, attach them to the right character, and you go to town.
My favorite in the first game, I love Luigi. I love the reaction site where, like, if they pass by, he'll shoot them. And then I love vampire ability.
Yeah, mine too.
So, like, that's my jam, like, right there. So if I can have something that has a vampire ability and still have that line of sight and be able to shoot things at a distance, like that's my jam for sure.
Yeah, I will say the status effects are pretty limited to these sparks, not so much the characters not as much. I'm trying to think of there's some different sort of examples, but it feels a little more spark based than it does character based. Like I feel like the first game sort of did.
So if I get this game, I'll probably be asking you where to get the Vampire Luma and how far I have to get into the game to get it and all that stuff.
Without big spoilers, there is more than one way to use a little bit of vamp. So
cool. Okay. Now, I don't know if this is spoilers. Do you get a lot of variety on your team outside of what they've just basically announced? Like, are we going to see some new faces along the way that are playable? Like, is it something like after you beat the game or something you can get some more characters? Not giving any specifics or anything, but is there like any kind of like replayability, so you'd want to play through the game with these new characters that you get? Or is it kind of sitting like you build your characters and those are the ones that you build up throughout the game and level up and stuff like that? Do you have to level everybody up equally? What's that kind of look like in the grand scheme of the game? And like, how does that affect replayability outside of just like, playing multiplayer with friends? Like, is there reason to go back to the game, I guess, with characters and things like that?
You get your last character a few worlds in. So,
okay.
I will say, like, the characters, they've shown off, like, all the main characters that you're going to get.
Okay. Excluding DLC, of course.
Yeah, excluding some things that could be coming. But they've shown all that off. I'll say when, like, it comes to, like, earlier worlds, you're pretty much just straight up not going to be able to finish a world 100% without going forward first and coming back. So I sort of did that on purpose too, to sort of like get everybody unlocked and then come back and play as so-and-so, in the first world to do this side mission and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Post 100%, which I'm almost at, I've got basically everything in every world except I haven't done the final boss. I've just been setting on it.
Yeah, understandable.
I don't think there's like a whole lot of big reasons to continue, but it takes like over 50 hours to get to that point. So I can't really complain. Plus, I'm the kind of person with a game like this, there's a lot to explore around with. And I feel like you could just kind of go and like, just go appreciate some of the details, like if you haven't sat and read all the lore and all that, or found all the little fun little sites to walk up to and check out. Like I get something out of that myself. But
there's definitely some humor in the first one, and if you explore the right things. Does this game have that charm, that humor that the first one did? Does it have a lot of that still? Does it bring a lot of that forward, or is it more of a serious tone?
No, I think it's still, there's still a lot of funny parts. There's, of course, maybe this is another like can of worms to open, but I was going to say, of course, there's the voice acting that's been added to it. And,
that's a bit jarring.
Yeah, and some people kind of aren't really quite used to it. I feel like I got used to it pretty quick. I understand that though, especially with like the Rabbids. They do give a reason for it in the game, so they do explain it at least. But no, I feel like a lot of it's still there. And if you remember, like in Kingdom Battle, I'm not sure what else to call it except for sort of like a point and click kind of deal, where you could walk up to some like objects and hit A, and Beepo would like tell you about it. And a lot of times there's some kind of funny joke or something mixed into it. That there's still very much those little situations where you'll see like a couple Rabbids doing something goofy, and if you get closer,
that was my favorite part.
There's still very much that. I almost feel like there's more of that sort of thing, and even some of it where you can just sort of see it in the background, where there's just an NPC of a rabbit walking around doing something goofy. So yeah, there's a lot of character and varieties. If anything, there's a little more variety in some of the Rabbids, like with how outlandish some of them are. And not just the bosses this time either.
Is this like a Luigi's Mansion 2 scenario where they're kind of generic, or do they flesh out the characters even more, make them more diverse as far as enemies go and things?
I feel like
are you going to see the same enemies, just different elements throughout the rest of the game, or are you going to see some wide varieties each world?
There's a little bit of like, you see, there's one in particular that I'm thinking of that you sort of see like the same thing, but it's just like different elements. But no, I think there's a lot of variety. I would say more so in this. I'm thinking more of like the friendly like NPCs and things like that as well, not just like the bosses, so to speak, or the enemies. But I think it sort of applies both ways.
Okay. I felt like there was a good mix of variety in the first game. I didn't feel like a lot of things were samey. So I think I'd expect that of the second game. Now, so outside of, and you haven't completed the game yet, but outside of the single player, does the single player offer any kind of co-op, or is it just standalone still?
Right now, there is only single player in it.
Okay.
I'm not sure what all I can poke at with that right now, but I will say, I will say right now it's just single player, and I don't know of anything in the future. So.
And they could do what they did with the first game, where you didn't get the multiplayer right away necessarily, but they did add it later. So I could see them doing that, even if it's not in the package. But I was getting ready to ask, like, if they had multiplayer and if there was a competitive scene already. I know you're a big part of the community with Rabbids, and so I wasn't sure if there's already something like, this is the meta tier or anything like that, or if that's still something that needs to come to the game. Still.
Yeah, it's a complicated situation, I guess. So. But right now it's just single player.
Okay. Now, I know that they've announced some DLC packs, and any one of those could have the multiplayer brought to it, or could be a free update like they did the first game. These things aren't off the table because that's just what they did with the first game, and so like I don't see why they wouldn't want to build out those things, those features that had it before. But giving people time to enjoy the story and the single player first is nice, and help you collect 100% before they give you something to work towards. And I'm kind of curious if they're going to do something online, if they're going to do the competitive scene, and if they're going to do some kind of like season pass type thing, or what they're going to do with that. And I'm maybe making a gross assumption that it's going to be a free update like it was in the first one, but maybe that's something they're going to tie into the DLC packs. But I know that we do have confirmation that Rayman's coming, so that's exciting. I know that was leaked or teased. I'm not sure if they've made the official announcement yet, but it's kind of cool to know that Rayman's going to be there. No hope for my beloved Ed to come to the game, but it'll be excited to see Rayman there.
I think Ed's dead. Oh, no. Poor Ed.
Canonically, he's dead. Yes. Maybe there'll be a Rabbids Ed.
That would be a deep cut, but that would be pretty funny. I'd appreciate that.
Can you imagine a Rabbids Rayman? A Ray Rabbid.
Getting out of control. Starting to go off the rails a little bit.
But that's interesting. So I'm sure there's some characters surprises in store for this game. A lot of different things. I was most intrigued by the second DLC that they announced and they teased it. The art was pretty cool. It looked kind of like a jungle planet. And there was a new character that looks kind of in the same like style or vein like that the new character they introduced in Sparks of Hope.
Edge.
Like as starting on your team. That kind of looks like they're maybe related or something, but this one looks a little bit more sinister with the razor teeth and everything.
Yeah,
I don't know.
She's got those dark chow like teeth. You know what I'm talking about? That big grin.
Yeah,
that's what I thought of immediately.
I love that. That's probably what draws me in. But I really like that element is probably just touched on my Sonic Adventure 2 battle love.
Right.
I didn't even realize it.
We know. We all know. It's probably why it drawed me in too. I drew a picture of her, actually, if you look on Twitter. Did you see that earlier? I was goofing off during work. I just did it. It's a very rough drawing. I just was like, hey, I'm going to draw that.
Yeah.
But anyway.
I'll check it out. Yeah. I wonder, so you say the game, you're trying to 100% things, try to unlock everything before you beat it, essentially?
Yeah.
Is that what you're trying to do, is like basically unlock or get everything that you can pre end of game? Now, if you're going for that, you say it's about 50 hours, or do you think like shotgun straight through, if you're trying to just really speed around it, like how long do you think it would be?
From what I've experienced and from what I've sort of researched, it seems, and this is a very rough estimate, and it very much varies per person, as about any game would.
Yeah.
But it seems like if you just kind of try to go through the main game, it's still going to take about 40 hours. And if you try to 100% it, you got to add about 10 more onto that. It's about 50. Again, that's a rough estimate, but I think that's a pretty good amount of time myself.
I think the last major topic I'd like to bring up, and it's something we always bring up pretty much in everything, is like, so in the first game had notable composers and some great music in it. Does this game carry forward with that legacy with great music? Does it have some of the greats, working on the music for the game? And it could be stuff that comes in the DLC, but how does it stand up to the first game's music and soundtrack and I guess star power behind the music?
Oh, I think it's even better. And that's not just because, Grant Kirkhope was like the composer on the first one. This one's got Grant Kirkhope. It's got Yoko Shimomura, and it's got Gareth.
Ooh, nice.
I'm going to say his name. I always say his last name wrong, and I apologize. I believe is it Coker? Goodness. Well, basically Gareth is the one who's done games like Ori, I know of, and there's a handful of others. But all three of them do a really great job, and I'm including Kirkhope in that as well, where I feel like the tracks that he covered are better in this game than they were in Kingdom Battle. Not that they were bad in Kingdom Battle. I just feel like they stand out even better here. And they've just really got a good lineup of those three that go back and forth in different tracks. Like I've got them all on iTunes right now, and there's over 50 of them. And it's a good. You can sort of tell, like if you know the composers, you can sort of tell who did what.
Okay, I was wondering if it was like painfully obvious, like who did what.
A little bit, but at the same time, like when you're playing the game, I don't feel like it's jarring. Like it doesn't feel like completely different, otherworldly styles. Mm-hmm. It mostly just sort of flows right into each other.
Okay. Cool. Very cool. Do we have, I guess, kind of a light story element? Do we have a lot of character growth for these characters from the first game? Like, do we see some more, I guess, progression of Mario, or is Mario kind of the same caricature throughout the whole game? Do we see some progression? I'm sure the Rabbids have times to shine and grow into their own. But do we see some of like the core Nintendo characters get some new like canonical like character growth or anything? Like, are they just pretty much the same they've always been?
They're pretty much the same, and that's just kind of how Nintendo is. Okay. They're sort of tight with that sort of thing, and sometimes that's fine. I'm pretty okay with that for the most part. Like, even though it's a little funny with the Rabbids being able to speak mostly in full sentences, and Mario and the gang still kind of doing their wahoos and stuff, and maybe it's just because I've known Mario and gang for like my whole life, but I'm kind of okay with that myself. But at least I will say with like the Rabbids, including like the Mario themed ones, there's a little bit of growth, or at least even more like personality put into what they had already sort of established in Kingdom Battle, or literal growth where like Rabbid Luigi felt more like a little kid in the first game, and he feels like a young teenager in this one. So little things like, like that as well.
Okay. It's awesome to hear. So definitely a game that you love the first one. Do you love this one just as equally? Do you think you like it a little bit more in some ways? Like, how would you say like it stacks up so far from what you've experienced from the first game? Do you think it touches on everything that you liked about it and builds upon that and is one of the greats for you?
Multiplayer aside, I would say for sure this one's a little bit better in a lot of ways.
Okay.
It's a little bit of a weird question just because I feel like there's a little bit of I try not to be biased for certain, but there's obvious like special moments for both of these games for me, including like two separate trips, based around both of them. So it's a complicated question because they're both a little bit different, but I would say Sparks of Hope is sort of my favorite of the two. At least I can say that right now. I don't feel super duper strong either way, just because they're both special in their own ways.
Okay. As far as a closer, I just wanted to see like if you were to pitch this game to somebody and say they should pick it up. Maybe they've played the first one. What would be the hook, like spoiler free hook, that you think that they would enjoy? That would be something like, oh, I like that idea. I think I'm going to go pick it up because of that. Like, what does he think the main selling point? And it can be your personal experience or just what you've heard from other people. Like, is there something that really, really makes a strong argument for getting this game like as soon as possible, or like for the Christmas holiday, or what makes this must get?
I would say there's all kinds of different people and different likes and things like that. So to sort of go off of someone that would be more similar to myself outside of the circle, first off, like most games I would say that have Mario in the title have a decent bit of quality to them, even if this isn't 100% developed by Nintendo. This is Ubisoft's doing. They're not going to just throw him to anybody. First off, there's that. There's not really much else to compare this to, so it's a very sort of fresh game, I think. It's not even like most other RPGs or Fire Emblem or something like that. It's sort of its own thing, I think, at least right now. For the most part, it is.
Yeah.
So there's that. Again, it sounds sort of generic to say it this way, but it's quite accessible, especially with Sparks of Hope. It has its own difficulties and all kinds of different little things you can turn on and off. You can make enemies hurt you more. You can make them hurt you less. There's actually an invulnerability. I cannot say that word. A mode that makes you not hurt, that you can turn on, if you have a child or something that really just wants to get through it. Basically, it's very accessible. You can also make it, pretty challenging on yourself. So I think it sort of reaches anybody. There's a good solid amount of content. And I'm not just saying that, but I do feel like the amount of hours that it requires is pretty decent for essentially a full price game. I just think there's a lot for it. And I think it's one of those where certain people that like this isn't necessarily their genre, or they're unsure about the Rabbids even. I've heard people say that. I think if they would more people would give it a shot, I think they would end up enjoying it.
Yeah. That's something like we've seen Kingdom Battle like go on crazy sale because, it's a Mario game, but it's also like, third party. So Ubisoft
they're allowed to
say what they want about the price and sales during holidays or things like that. So it sounds like a game that's like worth picking up even without a discount. But if you're a little on the fence still, like play the first one for sure. Right. Like you're going to get that on a steep discount nowadays. So play the first one. And then from that, like, if you really enjoyed what you played there, definitely like if you want to see the better, like improved version of, the sequel, true sequel to this, then pick up the second game. And if it happens to be the time where they have a sale or something, like awesome. But definitely, we'd like for people to do early adopting for here, just because we want to see more of these types of games. This Mario and Rabbids crossover is pretty cool, and we're getting DLC here coming up here soon. Maybe they'll have discounts on the base game, and then you can get the DLC and jump in on that, and when it's a little older. But definitely weigh your options there. But it sounds like it's going to be a worthwhile to spend even full price on this game to get the enjoyment out of it, especially with things to come with DLC and potential online multiplayer. If they follow the same thing as what they did in the first game. So it seems to have that same charm from what Josh has been able to to talk about, and it's got the humor, the toilet humor, and then also just the chuckle moments and oh, what's that doing over there? Oh, haha, I get the joke. So it's really cool to hear that it has that charm still, and they've done a really good job with this game. Leaks aside, I think that they've carried themselves really well with everything, and they've continued to promote this game like it is a top tier Mario game, and take a lot of pride in the series, and don't just like, oh well, it's just run of the mill like something we're going to do like every year. It's going to annualize or something like that. Like it's got its own charm, and they put a lot of care in it and put the money behind it, and also work closely with Nintendo. It's a unique hybrid, and definitely worth checking out.
I will say, particularly with, and I chat with some of them almost every day a little bit, in some small form at least, through Discord and Twitter and different things like that. But like literally sitting down and having a couple meals with like Davide, a couple months ago. Like I really believe a lot of the main creative people behind both of these games really do have a passion for it, and I genuinely think, like, especially like Davide in particular, is just a really nice guy, and I think it's very much worth trying to support that team and sort of keep this sort of stuff going, because for one, I think it's still almost a miracle that anybody was able to use Mario, like Nintendo's golden child, in this sort of capacity. They gave him a gun and they got away with it. So I very much think there is some heart put into these projects.
So definitely worth supporting them. Sounds like they're a good crew, and they put their heart and soul and love into this game. So definitely check it out. Well, I think that brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you so much, Josh, for bringing your experience and your memories and your knowledge for this new game. I hope this creates lots of nostalgic memories for people going forward. And I hope to get into this game here in the near future. Yes, and I'll be trying to wrap up the first game before I jump into the second game. But I'll get to it as soon as I can, and I'm excited for that.
Yeah.
All right. Did you have any other closing thoughts, or do you want me to go ahead and wrap it up?
Not really, no. I just really hope to see this continue to succeed, and especially that team, and we get more good stuff from this in the future, whatever form that may take. And honestly, maybe this sounds a little selfish. I'd love to be a part of it still in some way and just grow in that. It's been a blast. It's absolutely, some of it has been very surreal. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, it's awesome. All right. Well, you can find the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Podcasts, Pandora Podcasts, and you can also find our older episodes on YouTube if you want to check those out. You can find our social media sites at Nintendo NOS on Facebook. TikTok, it's Nintendo_NOS. On our Twitter, at Nintendo_NOS. on Instagram at NintendoNOSIN. Shoot us an email at NintendoNostalgiaIN@gmail.com. And then you can also give us a call on our Nostalgia Hotline, share your memories, and show us some love at 317-969-5690. Josh, that brings us to the end of the episode. Thank you so much for joining, and it's awesome to have you on as a host every time, and I love talking with you. It's always a good time, and I hope you have a great rest of your week.
All right, you all as well.
Later, everyone. Later, Rusty.
Bye.